While I was working on the subject of silence, there were a few perceptions of the mother which I thought would be appropriate to share with you all, particularly since the topic of silence occurs in the passage that we have before us. Normally, what we mean by silence is abstention from speech. Whoever does not talk is said to be observing silence, mauna. Now this, what we may call physical silence, has nothing to do with spiritual silence, though it may pave the way to the inner silence. Physical silence is enjoined in yoga, religion, for those who are too extrovert, too outgoing, throwing their energies, and those who throw their energies through words, through speech, are those who are most unaware of the criminal waste they are doing in useless expenditure of an energy that the divine has given man and which mother had occasion to lament so much. For those who can't control their movements, who get angry, who become violent, or who just talk too much and in the process commit several blunders, commit themselves to things which they never seriously intend to do. Physical silence is a good therapy. If one can't do it all the time as an exercise, one may do it, say, once a week. If not the whole day, at least half a day, say Sunday morning. And then, if you really do that, within 2 to 3 hours you are sure to see a gathering of energies, a swelling in the being, and then you realize how much you are wasting. After a while, you can't hold it, and you are in a sort of pressure to hum, to speak in your mind. Now this is the trap. When you are physically silent, there is a reaction if you are not vigilant. You begin to talk furiously in your mind. The mental mechanism gathers speed and it goes on furiously. Emotions, desires, imagination, all these thrive upon the energy that is saved, and you step into a world of fantasy. This is the danger of physical silence. You are cut off from the outside world as far as interchange is concerned, and you enter into a subjective world unless you are very vigilant and give a spiritual background to the discipline of physical silence. Sri Aurobindo, who never laid much store by outer silence, would say that silence, physical silence, must not be a discipline. If you can make it a habit to talk just what you need to talk, that is enough. If we look back on our day, say at this time or at bedtime, and trace how much we have talked, how much we need not have talked, how much harm has been done by what we have talked, either to others or to ourselves, we can see the area where we need to work. So, the first point is physical silence is a good discipline provided it is kept within bounds. Say, at certain periods of the week or of the month, but without making a fetish of it. If there is a phone call, for instance, it won't do to say that I am in silence. We have to talk. If there is an emergency, well, we have to set aside the prohibition. But what mother wants is, without making a fetish of things, we should practice what is good for our growth. Having said that physical silence is only an entry to the practice of spiritual silence. Now, what is spiritual silence? Spiritual silence begins with control of thoughts. We go on thinking, but actually we don't think. There is this rush of thoughts in the atmosphere, and they transit through our mind. So this we can't stop all of a sudden. We slow it down by control. There are various disciplines, the easiest of which is to pay attention to your breath. There is an intimate connection between thought and breath. When you think furiously or there is a chaotic feeling in the head, the breathing will be always irregular, fast. Slow down the breathing, there it gets calmer. We start not by slowing down, but by observing the breath. Even the act of observing the breathing has a wholesome effect in arresting the reckless flow of thoughts. The next step is to slow down the breathing. But this is only a lever by which you get hold on the mechanism of the mind. So you start by controlling the thoughts, slowly quieting the mind. It is the inner talk, inner conversations that damage our nerves, that age us more than physical speech. Side by side, there are the emotions. Always, when they are not being exercised, they get pent up. And there is a sudden flow of emotions. Well, they are to be quieted. So also the impulsions from the vital area to get up and be doing things, achieving things, and the physical restlessness. The body is used to be doing things, to be moving about. To sit still for a period of time is something unknown to it. The whole system of our asanas in the traditional yoga of Patanjali is to make the body immobile. Each one has to choose that asana by which the body stays stable. And they say, and I have found it true in practice, that asana is successful when you forget your body. When you wake up, you find you have a body. Otherwise, everything is stone still. Like a marble monument. Somewhere Sri Aurobindo describes in Savitri. This inner silence is true spiritual silence. A quietude in the body, tranquility in the mind, a calming of emotions, all to a reasonable extent, is spiritual silence. This silence is not disturbed by someone talking, by some dog barking, something unpleasant happening. It is not disturbed. Those waves go on the surface, but you stay calm, you stay silent. Now even this spiritual silence, Mother says, has its dangers. This silence becomes deceptive, unproductive, when we allow it to sink into inertia. Disinclination to act, laziness. We may deceive ourselves saying that we are silent. Actually, we allow a condition to be built in our being where we just lapse into inaction, aptitude to stay put, not moving. This she calls dead silence, which is certainly not an ideal condition to receive either from above or from within, anything of the higher or the deeper consciousness. On the other hand, she says that this silence must be a living silence. There could be activity, there must be an alertness, not a non-concerned aloofness, but a vigilance, an alertness, so that when something is happening, something is about to happen, you are, in your silence, you are receptive. So this state of receptivity needs the consciousness to be alert, not sleeping. So a silence that is alive, that is receptive, that is tranquil. And this tranquility has to be accompanied by a state of equanimity, which is a result of a long discipline of cultivation of equality. Sri Aurobindo's whole thrust in his essays on the Gita and in the synthesis of yoga, especially the earlier chapters, is an equality. Equality is not indifference. Equality is not neutrality. It is a firm acceptance of whatever comes, either as what has to come or as the will of God. Karmic consequence of my karma or the intention of God. Whichever the approach, there should be equality in the being. And this continuous application to build up a state of equality settles into an equanimity. That is, the normal status or the poise of consciousness is not disturbed. There is no asceticism about it, no withdrawal about it. You are in the midst of things, but you bear all that comes without complaint, without tremor, without agitation. And this state of equanimity promotes a serenity of mind, a tranquility in the being, which is the bedrock of the inner silence. So you will understand that silence has so many stages. Everyone, except one who practices the traditional bhakti yoga, has to learn to make this silence an integral part of his life pattern. Because only in silence can the new things be built. Those who have read carefully Mother's prayers and meditations or conversations, which are held in 1929, almost the first book of the Mother to be published here, will remember how much importance she gives to this silence. Once she observed that it is only by a few hours of silence that you can speak usefully for a few minutes. Silence gathers, silence lays the foundation for the higher consciousness to settle and to build itself. To begin with, my teacher used to tell me that it is that simple. He said, over everything, every object, there is an overhead zone of silence. Whether it is a human being or a plant or any object, there is a zone of silence. And it is from there that the overseeing intelligence functions. God is everywhere, true. But God is in the capacity as an overseer. The oversoul is above the perceiving consciousness. So each one of us carries a zone of silence. By remembering that this zone is there, relaxing into it now and then, you let that silence seep into you. You do not try to catch it. You do not try to pull it down. It is like a gentle dew which covers you, which envelops you. There is also the silence of the self, what the Upanishads call the Atman, the self behind supporting everything, immutable, eternal. Its very breath is silence. So behind your actions, behind your being, there is a sustaining silence. In other words, whether around, behind, or above. There is a domain of silence. You have only to remember and so organize your life that you don't cut across your natural link with that silence. Periods of meditation, periods of study, periods of japa, pranayam, exercise, asanas, these are all valuable periods when you can unreservedly open to the silence and let it form part of your life. The more this silence forms an active part of your being, the easier it is to progress in spiritual life of whatever conception. So this silence is the key. When there is this silence, you cannot waste your energies. It will always pull you back. You cannot utter stupidities. You cannot indulge in unspiritual activities. It is so sacred that you feel you are offending God when you break it. When you indulge in any customary habitual reactions, irritations, snubbing others, outbursts, there is such a deep remorse afterwards, a consuming remorse, that you think twice or thrice next time such an occasion arises. It is a sentinel of your good behavior and a standing entry into the deeper or the higher consciousness. I think it is time we must take up the Savitri next time.